a radiogenic production.
BLB, Sounds from the Past, Memories of Pirate Radio and Stories of Bray Local Broadcasting. Episode 3.
We're on the air now.
BLB. They were the authentic voices of the people of Bray.
Yesterday afternoon on the seafront.
I would like to wish BLB a very happy and successful future.
I don't think any community is truly that without having its own radio station.
The request is starting to flow in at the moment, and if you would like...
Bray needs this communication, and I think communication will open things up for everyone.
And welcome to another Balcall Community Council programme.
There was the Meath Road listeners, there was the Wolftown Square listeners, there was the Boghall Road.
Hey, you are Glen Curtin. A sad little ditty, a bad salad. Sorry, a sad ballad.
Sitting on a dart, coming home somewhere, I liked your programme this morning. Oh, what on earth was that rubbish you played? It was wonderful.
BLB, the magnificent service that it provided at the times. It really was the voice, the glue that made us what we are today. I think the town rediscovered its vibrant identity.
Hello and welcome to another day's programmes here on Bray Local Broadcasting. BLB is your local community radio here in Bray.
Bray Local Broadcasting grew rapidly through the 1980s, establishing itself as very much part of the fabric of Bray Town. A new premises was purpose-built for the station on the seafront by Joe Duggan, and a new, more powerful transmitter was bought from local engineer Bill Stapleton of Silver Pine Enterprises. And when this was installed, the station could be heard by many more listeners in the surrounding area. Underpinning BLB was a democratic structure, which we had developed from the very early days into a cooperative in which the station's members had a vote and a voice in how the station was run. There was a management committee which met every month, and a general meeting of all members also held monthly. Studio managers looked after the day-to-day running of the station's output, and this was overseen by an elected coordinator. In this episode, we'll find out more about what made BLB tick, the actual making of live radio broadcasting by a bunch of people, mostly from Bray, who had to learn lots of new skills on the job, and in most cases live on air. Here's Daphne Mitchell, JJ, Joe Bollard and myself discussing one very early piece of challenging radio technology.
There was a yellow button and there was lots of black buttons. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember what the yellow button was.
On the decks back then, there were two buttons. There was a grey button and a yellow button. Daphne had a habit of hitting the grey button instead of the yellow button.
It was a square button. I can tell you to this day exactly where it was. Now, I didn't know what colour it was.
The grey button lifted the needle off the record.
What was the yellow button for?
To start the turntable.
Oh, right! Started the turntable.
So as soon as you'd finished your link, as you say, you'd hit the yellow button and hopefully everything would go according to plan.
And she said, this time we're going to have John Travolta. And nothing happened.
Mark Quinn was shouting.
And you could hear going wrong, whatever she was doing.
Press the yellow button.
Next minute you hear the big shout coming in from outside. The yellow button, Daphne! I take off.
Ah, yes, the famous yellow button.
I got the hang of it in the end.
Entertainment and information. For notices, requests or information, you can write to BLB, care of the Music Machine Record Shop, Unit 1, Bray Shopping Centre.
We were having a go at something that had never been done before. This was in a small town.
John Matthews, or JJ, was one of BLB's first coordinators.
We saw ourselves as like pioneers. We were pioneers in this new type of a radio station that was a democratic setup. It was organised from the volunteers, so everybody had a say in it.
Founding member of the station, Doug Maguire.
We really believed that we had found a niche. Why go up against the Sunshines, the ARD, the Radio Dublins? They were commercial radio stations, albeit they were pirates. They were making money. We were smaller. and we were in a different locality, and we all believed that we had hit on something that nobody else had touched at that stage.
The very name of the station, Bray Local Broadcasting, is almost like a little bit of BBC, BLB. It had a certain ring to it.
Not only did the name have a ring to it, but the station had found its voice, and that was as a local communication service that served all the people of Bray with the widest range of programmes and presenters.
Tá si bhgéisteach le BLB Caracúid sé madar an bheantan agus 97.8 RFM sin Radio Phobal Bray.
I think from the radio course and from our reading up on what we were going to do.
Another founding member, John Murphy.
We didn't have DJs. So DJs were just for music stations. We had presenters who were thoughtful and spoke a lot more, right? But not about the music necessarily.
Well, hello, good morning and welcome along to Bray Local Broadcasting. From now till 8:30, it's the breakfast programme with myself, Paul McGovern.
And myself, Ian Lacey. We hope you'll stay with us between now and then. Plenty of news and information at 8 o'clock. We'll have a look.
John Ryan was involved in production and presentation.
It was local news and local information for local people.
AK on the way with BLB's community notice board, lost, found and for sale section. If you'd like to include anything on that, any little snippets of information about your club or organisation, or anything perhaps that you'd like to try and sell over the airwaves of BLB Radio, phone us now on 829.
It was Bray's internet at the time, because that was where you went to find out what was happening in the town.
It's hard to disagree with comparisons on a local level with social media today, given that BLB had a sort of access all areas approach to broadcasting.
BLB Community Radio.
The technology we had was very basic, but the way we operated was very like the American system, where the guy did everything. One guy did the whole lot. He presented the program, ran the discs, he played the ads, everything. So we didn't think of any other way being possible. So we just built our studio, 2 turntables, 2 tape players, little mixing desk, 2 microphones, and that was it. And also I think you felt more in control, because you could spin the record at the right moment. You didn't have to wave your hand and someone behind a glass do it for you, which you couldn't have afforded anyway. So it was a real hands-on experience.
BLB.
And a very good morning to you. It's exactly 9:30 on this Tuesday, the 20th of August 1985, and you're very welcome along to the Community Notice Board. I'll start by telling you that at the Community Information Centre here in Bray, you can get help on...
The thing about BLB is we broaden our horizons. When other older listeners tuned in, they realised that there's something for everybody here, not just one particular age group.
Peter Carroll presented and produced many programmes.
There was sport, there was community groups doing their own programmes, there was an auxiliary fire service, had their own information programme. There was rock and roll, there was country and western, there was Beatles music, there was literally just everything.
5:30 through until 7, it's tea time with Mark Nevin, and then from 7 to 8 this evening, it's Peter Carroll with Sports Time. From 8 to 10, it's Ger Hayes with a rock and roll revival.
Radio's hard.
Mark Mortell was another presenter.
First of all, you have to prepare and organise. You have to think about what you're going to say and how you're going to plan it, how you're going to organise it, because you don't have any time to think once it's going. And then there is the fact that you're actually talking into a vacuum.
I know the best broadcasters.
Versatile and regular producer-presenter, Chris Conway.
They make you feel good to listen to them. It's this two-way thing. Having the smile in your voice and having just, somebody who's like a friend on the radio.
That's all the way from 1971. That's Cat Stevens from his album Tears in the Forecast, and a beautiful number called...
People can definitely hear the smile in your voice, and before you go on air, you really have to make sure you're present in that moment. Anything else that's going on in your life, it just doesn't exist. But actually, it's really easy to do.
Karen Shields presented many programmes, including a late-night music show.
John Martin and Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I remember doing a late-night show with Guy Fountain, and it was Cuddle Up with Karen. And Guy had got all this incredible music that you could only get in the States, this vinyl. And I paid out of my own savings to have this voiceover that I'd heard on commercial radio in Dublin. I thought, oh my God, this voice, it's just sex on legs.
Cuddle Up with Karen.
I think what made BLB a success was the professionalism from the word go. With, the very basic of equipment initially. But everybody's heart was that this is proper radio. We may have started off being a pirate, but the whole aim was to make community radio a legal entity in Ireland. And BLB played such a big part in that I don't think people quite realise how significant that input was. And then the wonderful eclectic mix from kiddies programmes right the way to news programmes. And, you know, drama and creating comedy shows and experimenting. But above all, it was a radio station that was a serious radio station. And it was also a lobbyist there for something much bigger.
That's a track from the Sun City album, which came out of the Sun City Project, featuring Gil Scott-Heron, who has always been very vocal on political and social issues. The apartheid problem, though, has gone right across the board in music. It's not just the politically minded artists who are singing about it.
The red light goes on and you know it's live.
Freddie Moorhan hosted a children's programme every Sunday morning.
This is it. You're on.
You're in the moment. You're on. There's no going back. You have to do it. It's exhilarating in lots of ways.
Seafront yesterday afternoon, and you saw all the fun and excitement of the Lord Mayor's election.
Real radio works when people are talking from a place that's honest and authentic, but also being receptive to the audience in the way that they engage. And I think that was an understanding of being part of the community and engaging with that, while at the same time knowing those niches are going to be interested in this little bit and other niches and other little bits.
This has been Bray today for the past hour. I hope you've enjoyed the programme. If you have, come back and join us again tomorrow evening between 5:30 and 6:30.
It's The Body on BLB.
It sure is him and me as well until 11 o'clock this morning. Christmas Eve on BLB. You're welcome along to Christmas Crack.
Everything was on cassette back then, so you'd queue up a cassette which had a phone ringing.
Mike Duggan presented a variety of music programmes, including an anarchic series with Pat Hannon.
You'd answer the phone live with the microphone, hello, and then the answer, if you like, was on the cassette as well, and it was carnage.
It's BLB for a good old Monday morning. Good morning. Oh, dearie me, here's the phone again. Oh. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Yes?
Have any money?
Yes.
Would you have time to 2 seconds?
Tasha Vigeshto Clare, Ronan O'Duhig, Air, Tim Court Vray.
This is Bray Local Broadcasting Community Radio on 456 metres medium wave, 657 kilohertz. The time is 4 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Mark. And it's the Senior Citizens programme until 5:30.
One of my favourite programmes in the early days was Joe Naylor.
Presenter Barry Nevin, who also produced the Civil Defence's weekly programme At Your Service.
Like Joe Naylor would never have got a chance, and he did that fantastic afternoon programme for the Bray old folks, playing music of their vintage and era.
Bray Local Broadcasting Community Radio on 657 kilohertz. It's just after 3 o'clock.
Wolftown Residents Association, they had their own programme. Little Bray Residents Association, Vassar Row Residents Association. We had the afternoon programmes. Daphne, Maura Cullen, people would come in and chat to them. We had Maura Byrne, who did a more kind of politicised version of an afternoon chat show.
My name's Moira Byrne, and during the next hour I'll be hosting a discussion on the main points as to why we should either accept or deny ratification of the Single European Act.
In our innocence we did things. We had a gay pride kind of week before anyone had invented the name Gay Pride, and we lost advertisers because they didn't want to be associated with a gay programme. You can't imagine that happening now. We had a couple of women's weeks where we focused on women's issues for an entire week, and they were marvellous things to be doing, and they were very innovative because even the national broadcaster then wasn't doing that kind of thing.
We have two more guests in the studio now, Kathleen Kinsella and Valerie Keegan, and they've both been closely involved with the Tidy Towns competition and the gardening competition which we had here in Bray this year.
Local people want to know local stories. There could be things going on, terrible things in the world, but people would turn on BLB to hear what's happening in Bray.
In the main street in particular, there were two eyesores which at the present time are being cleaned up. There are a few left, of course. There's where the old Turkish baths were, and there's also the site down at the station where the old International Hotel was, that have just been left, and the developers have left them alone. I think this is not only a local problem, it's a national one, and it's time it was tackled.
There was a milk strike on, and people were all going mad for the milk. They couldn't get the milk anywhere. And this particular Sunday morning, one of the lads came in to me, he says, there's a milkman outside, he wants to know whether he can come on the radio. And I said, so yeah, bring him in. And he said, see, that he's had to get a load of milk. And he said, see, at the moment, see, I'm going up to such a shop. And he said, see, I'll be up there in 10 minutes. And he told me afterwards, he practically emptied the whole van of milk. Because nobody had any milk. But people were listening to the local radio station to find out, is the water off? Is the power off? Is the football matches going to be on? Is slashing rain? Has that been raining all night? Are the matches going to be on? Yes, no. They are heard on BLB. So all of a sudden, BLB became the local Google.
Good afternoon. It's exactly 1 o'clock on Bray Local Broadcasting. My name is Jonathan James and bidding you welcome to the Bog Hall Community Marathon, sponsored of course by Nixdorf Computers on the Bog Hall Road, where there are about 450 runners anxiously waiting up at the Bog Hall Road. So we go over live to the St. Fergal's Community Hall and Vincent Cowan. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, JJ. How are you?
I'm fine. I've got my sandwiches here and I've got my cups of coffee. How are you doing up there? Are you keeping warm?
We're keeping warm here, yes. There's great activity here altogether. As you say,
outside broadcasts like this one became a regular feature of BLB's output, thanks to the technical skills of Frank Duffy, Ronan O'Farrell, Lawrence Hallett and John Murphy. A portable FM transmitter was built, and this was used to send a signal right back to the studio from any part of the town, so that the microphone could go right to the streets of Bray and be broadcast live, and presenters in the studio could interact with presenters on the street. The Bray St. Patrick's Day Parade would never be the same again. From 1983 onwards, a team of BLB presenters brought the parade to the airwaves.
Now, who have we got at the moment in the outside broadcast?
Hello, I have a young lady standing beside me and I believe that she's going to do a turn for us on stage after the parade has passed by.
On the reviewing stand this morning, the Minister for Education, Gemma Hussey TD, Wicklow TD, and she's sitting right next to the President of the Bray Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Michael Collins. I see Jane Murphy, Fine Gael up there, and Liz McManus from the Workers' Party, enjoying, I would say at this stage, the 1983 St. Patrick's Day Parade here in Bray.
On Patrick's Day, the caravan being parked there, and people, they were physically seeing the apparatus of radio on their street.
Very, very Latin feel to this. This is the Returned Development Workers float. Very, very Latin.
Is that a tape or are they actually singing?
No, they're actually singing.
Yeah, go ahead. Actually singing, all right. Right behind them are Curran Brothers and two of their lorries, very well decorated, with bags of coal. English coal, Polish coal, Texan coal, Wonder coal, Economy coal, Nuggets and Slack. And there's another lorry which I'll allow Claire to read out. I'm not going to read out this.
Actually, I can't quite see it yet.
It's coming.
The first lorry is still passing me by at the moment, and they're actually trying to find their way around the crowd. It's like a maze at this stage. There's so many people down here.
The lads came to our shop one day and asked would we do an outside broadcast, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and we said yes, grand. And I couldn't believe it seemed to be so simple. They just simply plug in here, plug in there, plug in. And then all of a sudden they start playing music. And so, we're broadcasting. So, geez, that's unbelievable.
1, 2, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed, we can.
Well, I'm very glad you got us a little bit later, but we're on the air now at last.
Mark, just before you go on there, Mark.
Yeah?
Yeah, you're a little bit loud on the mic there. Maybe if you just step back from the mic a bit.
Immediately.
And the music is a little low as well.
We'll get rid of the music now because we have another record coming up now in a second.
Okay, right, off you go. It's all yours.
Complete with live on-air technical adjustments, that was Mark Mortel and myself winging it on an early outside broadcast from Bray's Main Street.
I remember there was the festival in Bray and we were doing an outside broadcast, and this man came up and I thought I'd interview him, and he had a nappy thing on. That's all he was wearing. And I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "My name's Dick." And because he was wearing a nappy, it kind of threw me. And I couldn't carry on talking. I just didn't know what to do.
4 minutes past 10 o'clock on Bray Local Broadcasting, AM, Stereo FM for North Wicklow and South County Dublin.
We had no training in this. We kind of trained each other. And as it went on then, we would try and train people coming up. Obviously we made mistakes. How would we not?
That's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Join me again tomorrow, same time, same place at 5:30. Broadcasting to Bray and the surrounding areas on 456 metres medium wave and 96.3 megahertz FM. This is BLB, and here's Peter Carroll.
Thank you, JJ. It's the T Connection.
In January 1985, the station employed its first full-time station manager, Sally Reynolds. Up to that point, there had been studio managers and station coordinators.
When you're managing something like that, you are conscious of the quality. You know, it can't drop.
We had people who were paying money to have their ads played, when it came down to it. You couldn't have a mess. And therefore, there were moments where you were put a bit to the pin of your collar in terms of, somebody who maybe just wasn't quite, hitting it and knew somebody else could do it instead, and managing that process from one to the other. I mean, we did it. But I think, again, that group feeling was very strong. It is the message that matters. And so if I'm listening to a jazz programme, I would much prefer to have somebody presenting it who really knows their jazz and who can give you breed, seed and background to every single record that they play, rather than somebody who's got a nice voice. And I think in BLB we were very conscious of that. We really had genuinely people who knew their music and even when it came to current affairs and we were doing roundabout and stuff, there were people from here. It wasn't gloss by any manner of means. And that's a lesson I've carried with me all my life. And so far as the gloss is really not important, it's the content.
It's going on this Monday evening, and it's time for your weekly dose of rock and roll. My name is Ger Hayes, and I'm with you until 9 o'clock this evening.
In the early 80s, there was a comeback of rock and roll and rockabilly.
Ger Hayes, presenter of the Rock and Roll Revival Show.
And you had the likes of the Jets and the Stray Cats and Matchbox even on Top of the Pops. So that really reinforced it, and people had a great interest in it. And the likes of the Elvis Appreciation Society contacted us, and the Buddy Holly Appreciation Society contacted us, and they came down and spoke about it.
Can you hear me over there?
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll have to organise this microphone first.
I was lucky enough to interview some of the great Sun grades, Carl Mann, Carl Perkins, Sleepy LaBeef, people like that, through the show, because there's such an interest that these people were coming to the Top Hat in Dunleary and to the Magnet in Pearse Street. And through the radio, I got to meet these people, interview them, and play their interviews on the radio. It was fantastic. Living the dream, absolutely.
BLB provides an important and genuine community service. If you would like to contribute to BLB or wish to contact the station, write to 1 Strand Road, Bray, or telephone us.
We mentioned that Freddie Moran presented a children's programme, but here's how he got started.
I didn't really know what I let myself in for. I went home and my wife said to me, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Jeez, I don't know." I'd worked in Butlins and I thought it was just a matter of walking out on the stage and things would come into your head. So I went down with me a few records, and a lad called Mick Ray was on the desk. So he played the records. He said, "What's your first record?" And I gave him the records, and he just pointed at me. I said, "Geez, I didn't know what to say. I just didn't know what to say. I had no preparation whatsoever. I didn't realise what it was like to present a programme on the radio."
Pat Hannon, we would if we could see him.
The first week anyway, it was a total disaster.
My thanks to Amanda Bell and to David Grant and to Wemma Boyd, to our guest this morning, Jim McLaughlin, and thanks to all the boys and girls who entered the competition.
The following week I said I'll be a little bit more prepared.
There was nothing more terrifying than sitting behind a deck and doing your first ever broadcast when you put the red light goes on.
Bach McCann was a producer and presenter.
And then suddenly with experience it just comes natural. But just that one moment, you were all prepared for it. Oh my God.
And there in the background, beautiful stuff indeed from Quincy Jones from his album I Heard That, and an instrumental track called Brown Soft Shoe.
Bach and that kind of style, and just wild style, it was just terrific. They were all very, very different characters and very different people. So I think what BLB had was a richness in terms of its programming that really was very different.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Boghall Community Council programme this beautiful Sunday afternoon. It is really and truly lovely outdoors, but I hope that doesn't stop you from listening to us for the next hour and a half.
We had a lot of talk, we had a lot of interview, we had a lot of specialised programmes. Civil Defence I produced with Louis O'Rourke, At Your Service.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think the people that were involved with me, like Betty and Barry Nevin and all the other people that had helped out over the years, I think we all got great crack out of it. It was good fun, and not only was it good fun, but we did a good service in that time.
I felt it was a community effort.
Vincent Kerwin had a keen interest in local sports and presented a weekly show.
And football's part of the community. Let's get the results out to the community as quick as we can, because matches were played on a Sunday. The results were in the Wicklow people, which didn't come out then until a Friday. So if you could get them out on radio a little bit quicker, and we used to get them out on the Monday night. The fact that I did it made me feel a little bit proud that I brought local sport to the radio, because local sport was never on the radio before that. And I broadcast in 1994 from Turkey. I think it was probably the first local radio station to do a live broadcast from as far away as that. When Bray Wanderers played in the Cup Winners' Cup in Trabzon in Turkey, I did a live broadcast for the second half of that. And I think that's probably a record that BLB holds that probably a lot of people don't even know about.
I produced and presented sports programmes over a while, and I'd be covering the local North Wicklow Schoolboys District League, and I get stopped in the street the next day and say, my son scored 2 goals, and he said he only scored 1. Or I was also told of instances when the programme went out on air at 7:30 on a Monday evening that Coronation Street and all was turned down, so the kids could hear their own name mentioned after they scored a goal, and a big yelp would go into different houses right across the community. So that's identifying with your audience straight away, you know.
More music! All of this making radio was great, and as we've mentioned, we trained each other on how to do it. And for some, initially, it was an uphill struggle. Here's Jimmy Byrne.
BLB used to go from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, and then they were going to extend from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. But I got a Monday night slot. Mark Quinn then came and mixed for me the first time. Jay Roach done 2 or 3, and then after that, on the 4th week, I'll never forget, Jay Roach got up and said, right, you're on your own. And for 1 hour and 55 minutes, I was terrified. Microphone, records, left deck, right deck, make sure the faders were up. And I was terrified. I don't know how I got through it.
Ireland's only blind presenter at the time was our own Joe Bollard.
Unfortunately, people who can see have a problem. They have to look at everything they do. It's a waste of time, me doing that.
Well, I'm sorry, we have to fade that one there. The Fields of Athenry, they're from Paddy Riley.
So what you've got to do is, you've got to put your hand out and feel the microphone and get the judgment between there and the microphone. I can keep my head in front of the microphone and still do that with one hand, but it's all touch.
Adrian Kennedy was a presenter and station manager.
So you play one ad on this cassette tape and one ad on this cassette tape.
Take off this winter with Eugene McGee Travel.
The craft was to make the ad break flow seamlessly, which didn't always happen.
While one record was playing, you would have to queue up the other record on the other deck. Now, you'd have a listen on a PFL or pre-fade listen. You'd get it back to the beginning of the record.
You're taking off a record and you're putting it back on again.
Sally Byrne was involved in office duties, and she also presented and produced programmes.
You're lifting over the needle and you're putting that on, and hopefully it works right for you.
And here we have the Carpenters.
As it sort of took off and the turntable hadn't hit the speed.
Let's jump the gun, the Irish Eurovision entry, and take him home.
Easy Top 40.
Timmy Hannigan is so hunky.
And we're up to this week's number 4.
You had Technics SL1200s.
Another presenter was Timmy Hannigan.
Direct drive decks, and they started in a quarter turn full speed. You had slip mats. You had decks that were quartz locked.
The worst thing, of course, go wrong was you played the record at the wrong speed. You'd put a 33 and a third on and you'd play it at 45. Now, that may not make sense to a lot of people today, but they were real records. They were actually real hardcore. They were vinyl records, and you pressed it at the wrong speed. Well, you had the Chipmunks.
On AM and FM, this is BLB Community Radio.
Thomas Kane presented the Ballads programme.
I used to have a few jokes as well in it, you know, and a whole lot, and read out different things, and somebody might say to me, oh, that was a crap joke you told last night, you know, where did you get that from? And I just say, thanks very much, hope you enjoyed the programme. There was just some buzz there, you know, sitting in front of a microphone and talking to people or the persons listening to me out there, you know. I absolutely loved it. To be stopped in the street and someone recognised my voice. Oh, I was in my alley.
You're pulling all these parts together to make this sound, and that's a mixture of, you know, the spoken word, it's a mixture of music and silence at the right time.
Obviously, you couldn't have dead air, but you could rely on somebody in the toilet behind you flushing the loo. So you never had dead air then, there was the loo flushing, and that gave you a second to get your thoughts together to say, oh, it's raining heavy outside today.
Which film did this come from? 829359 if you know, and you could win yourself a little prize.
When I started doing the Anything Irish programme, I mixed myself.
Another regular presenter was Nick Ugan.
Probably made lots of mistakes, and I still have tapes to prove that I did make mistakes. And Who cares? It was fun at the time, and it was real community radio. I've interviewed all the top Irish artists during those years, the people I met, the people I interviewed. Incredible.
Well, there you had Paddy
when
Riley
Bray
the
lost its community radio, they lost a huge chunk of information that was passed to people around the place. It's not the same in Bray anymore.
So until we meet again, this is Nick Coogan saying, do have yourselves a good day. If you're driving, drive safely, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Any one of us who presented programmes on BLB were always trying to improve, and the station managers had the job of keeping the standards up through gentle encouragement.
A lot of them were doing it as a hobby pastime, but they were very good at it, really good at it. And I could come to somebody and say, you need to do it this way. You had to tiptoe around it in the sense that you said, look, this is a good idea, try it this way. And it worked. And I think in the end, we made really good radio.
We tried to have standards in broadcasting, that balance, fairness, clarity. But then we didn't try to be professional in the old sense of it being slick. Professionalism was about the content and about how we sounded rather than sounding slick fast. That wasn't what we were about.
In our next episode, we'll hear about the interviews that gave local politicians access to the airwaves for the very first time and how they lapped it up.
At the moment, I'm not quite satisfied with the bylaws. They go back to 1886. I will be putting that proposal forward at the next meeting of the council that the bylaws be amended.
I feel that we did have a chance to do something about it, and unfortunately the rest of the councillors didn't grasp the chance.
We'll also hear about the advertising that became so much a part of the sound of BLB and how producing those ads sometimes brought its frustrations. Prepare for some colourful language.
Shop tonight at Mr. T and leave your Saturday free. Yes, Mr. T is open every... shite.
Big names at low prices at Brayware. Fuck it.
And that's all to come next time. My sincere thanks to all of the participants in this series. Sound recording was by Mike Quinn and sound mixing was by Luke Conlon, both of Highwire Post-Production, Dublin. BLB, Sounds from the Past, Memories of Pirate Radio and Stories of Bray Local Broadcasting was produced and presented by me, Mark Quinn, and is a Radiogenic production.